Good day. I've got the opportunity today to interview a gentleman for whom I've got a great deal of respect, Mr. Ghaith Zubi, United Nations Security Council expert, specific expertise on Al-Qaeda, Taliban and related terror financing, typologies, etc. If I may start with a broad question. If we can just look at the past few years, the developments within the Security Council, sanctions regimes, the current developments, and what you see will be the future developments in general, and more specifically as it regards terror financing.
Thank you, Ernst. Thank you for having me. Yeah, you're right. If we look back like 5-10 years from now, we can easily note that the Security Council were addressing governments, regulatory bodies, supervisory, but over time, because terror financing and the financial crimes on the sanction regimes are more specific, so we can note again lately that the Security Council is like addressing, encouraging, and engaging with sectors and special industries, and even sometimes in their in-between specifics how they conduct their businesses. And we can see lately, like for example, the Security Council addressed the artifacts, antiquities industries, museums, where these kind of artifacts looted from conflict zone is something like prohibited, and these kind of under sanctions, nobody can deal with them. So yes, again, the more time will come, the more we can see like the engagement and the active and positive engagement of Security Council of the United Nations under the leadership of the member states of the United Nations in specific kind of industries where we all together as international community prevent terrorists from abusing businesses and our lives.
Excellent. And maybe an unfair question for such a short term of time that we have for this interview, but any specific red flags that you've seen in the terrorism financing environment that private sector compliance officers should be aware of in their daily compliance function? Is there any specific trends, new red flags developing?
Oh yeah, the Security Council, all regimes has kind of dual reporting each year, where you can find easily new industries and new illicit businesses, and in the case of terrorists, where they invest and try to use as a kind of fronts for their financing some kind of new illicit industries. Sometimes they use real estate, farming, fisheries, and in cases in Latin America, they use the car dealing, for example, to elicit or to cover their money, or sometimes to transfer it from a region to another. So I think compliance departments within financial institutions need to be vigilant in terms of like sometimes the terrorists and the criminals both are kind of ahead of us in terms of abusing these kind of legitimate businesses. Yeah.
And that nicely brings me to my last question. With these changing typologies, if we look at current conflict zones, those areas like Syria, Iraq, coming out of that environment, future investment into these conflict zones, where do you see that moving as far as this threat of terror financing is concerned as we rebuild these conflict zones or conflict countries?
Actually, this is one of the areas that the Security Council of the United Nations addresses lately, because it was prepared from the perspective of the Security Council that what next will be our challenge altogether as international community. This is why the rebuilding and reconstruction of Iraq and Syria in this specific area will be the next, let's say, challenge for financial institutions and other compliance departments. But fortunately, we are now in a good shape and more, let's say, capable as all together as partners in this kind of fight against terrorism. But again, as long as countries are using and financial institutions are using the proper channels, the governmental vetting processes, I think they'll be good in terms of like securing the flow back of the money to the conflict zones.
Excellent. Once again, thank you for your time and the opportunity to speak to you on such an important topic, and look forward to seeing the developments within the United Nations Security Council as it relates to these topics. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.